Hi, welcome to the Gun Room. I'm with Jay. Jay, how are you?
Yeah, good mate. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Quite an eventful night, wasn't it, last night? We'll get round to that. Let's tell everyone what we're doing first. We're going to discuss the performance, the brilliant performance at Anfield. It's hard enough going there with 11 men, but with 10 men, it's a mission, isn't it? We'll go
Yeah,
over this week's red card for Xhaka. Seems to get one a week, doesn't he?
yeah.
Was it a fair cop? Pun intended, or was he a
Hmm.
victim of circumstance? We'll discuss that. Plus the reinforcements we're going to need. Who and how many? Um, Jay, we expected a tough game, but Arsenal have a special way of doing it the hard way, don't they?
Yeah,
What was your take on this game? It was a nail biter.
yeah. I think I didn't really know what to expect before we started, other than Liverpool are going to be, really tough opponents. And when I saw their starting 11, couldn't help but think how you can pick such a strong side after, the week before they couldn't field any side. So that, and I wasn't the only one that thought like that. So yeah, it was a really strong Liverpool side, and obviously we'd lost certain players, Martin Odegaard especially. So I kind of feared the worst. And I mean, I thought we were absolutely superb. It wasn't well, I suppose in a certain way it was vintage Arsenal, but not so much a performance that you've kind of seen very often in the last few years, of being able to dig in and defend away at one of the top three sides. We haven't really seen it too often. So every one of them that finished that game last night, I thought were absolutely superb, and they were credit to the club.
Do you think it was a bit of Klopp skullduggery? Because it was quite interesting, because we obviously the first leg was supposed to be at the Emirates, and then it
Yeah.
changed to Anfield. And listening to Jamie Carragher last night, he said that it was to Arsenal's advantage, and I couldn't quite work it out. I thought, what's he talking about? How is it to your advantage when you could effectively, with that team that Klopp put out, kill off
Yeah.
the entire contest?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're trying to just spin it, aren't they? I mean, it's, I think the football at the minute, team selection and games getting cancelled all over the place. And, it's, the consistency's not there, is it? You're trying to, squads are just ravaged, aren't they, at the minute? And I mean, I can't stand Klopp. I know we went over this in the last pod, and I'm not really a big fan of Liverpool in general, but and they absolutely played a blinder when it came to this game, because ultimately they got their players fit, they got their players available, but it didn't. They couldn't pull it off. They couldn't capitalize on ultimately they were only really missing, Mane and Salah, wasn't it? They were, other than that, they were full strength, Liverpool, and we were very much below full strength, and they couldn't capitalize. So we're definitely in the. I would say we should be confident for the second leg, and I think with the home advantage, you live in hope that we can get over the line and get to the final.
Now, Jurgen Klopp, after the match, he was a bit strange, because normally he's very articulate, isn't he? Very good at
Yeah.
putting his point across. But it was almost like the English language was a bit of a stranger to him.
Yeah.
He was just rambling and rambling on about nothing in particular. But anyway, let's move on. We're not going to dwell too much on the Xhaka thing. Well, I suppose we will, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Because it's being done left, right, and centre, and it's being milked. But so 71 minutes, it's a long time to suffer constant pressure. It's always a feeling of mine that you can only withhold if you can put a couple of attacks together, then you can sustain that period of pressure. But it was constant, wasn't it? How did Arsenal manage to keep them out? Because it was a bit of a wing and a prayer job sometimes. Who was key for you?
Yeah, I mean, once, first and foremost, I think we, like you said, we need to we need to celebrate the performance. You know, regardless, let's not focus on Xhaka too much. You know, this is what he does. This is just what he is. It's what he's all about. But the performance last night was, it was impressive from Arteta. He went to a back three, didn't he? 3 central defenders, put Rob Holding on, and I mean, you know, we've spoke about Rob Holding at length. You know, I think we both agree he's a bit of a limited player, but he slotted into a back three central defenders, and made, in the same way as Forest made it difficult for us last Sunday, we made it difficult for Liverpool. We lined up 5 across the back when we didn't have the ball. You know, Tierney and Callum Chambers went to a very flat back 5, and then the midfield just basically sat really deep and invited Liverpool on. And, you know, to be perfectly honest, up until the last 5 minutes, Liverpool didn't have a chance, did they? Didn't even have a shot, really. They had a few sort of long range efforts that sailed into the cop or sailed, you know, high and wide, and they didn't. I think they only had 1 shot on target all the way through the game. Ramsdale, you know, okay, I think there was a few hairy moments where he might have I think he spilled 1 or 2, but in general, we restricted them. We made it difficult. They couldn't. What was impressive was that they couldn't get in behind too often. You didn't really see their wide men or their fullbacks. You know, Trent and Robertson are so dangerous getting forward, and their deliveries are normally so good that it makes it difficult for the opposition. And that just didn't happen, and we've got to take some credit for that, because we shut that down. And it was one of those performances where every player out there, you know, gave it their all. You know, it was brilliant to see Lacazette. You know, I thought he was fantastic, and then on the night, you know, he was dropping deep and he was helping out the midfield, and nobody hid, did they? You know, everybody really put a solid effort in and fought for every challenge and fought for every header. And you know, that's all you really can ask for, isn't it? You know,
it was interesting how Sky tended to put a spin on the performance. It wasn't so much about Arsenal, it's about what Liverpool weren't doing. It was about Salah missing and Mane missing. So we want to get rid of all that, because, you know, like we owned up to with the Forest game, Forest put in a shift. So Arsenal put in a shift at Anfield, and we got what we deserved. We deserved that draw for all the skullduggery and nonsense that was going on. And I think there was some of that, and I won't be the only one. In terms of personnel, Ramsdale came in for Leno. That wasn't a surprise, was it really? He was going to come back for this one, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought, you know, when Cedric went off early on with a knock, I thought Callum Chambers did so well. You know, he got straight in there, and I mean, I've always preferred him to Cedric, if I'm being honest. Again, you know, somebody who hasn't played too often, and it was okay, you're not playing against Mane, you're not playing against Salah, but Liverpool have got quality all over the pitch, and to come in and do such a fine job is a credit to him. And it was just interesting when we did go down to 10 men and we were attacking. They were obviously still told, the wingers, you know, or the wide men rather, Kieran Tierney and Chambers, to try and get forward as much as possible. And tactically, Arteta got it just right. When we haven't got the ball, drop into a back 5, and when we have got the ball, try and get forward and support. And it was. I mean, I thought Lokonga in the middle had a good game, you know, tough, especially when Xhaka gets the red card. We've spoke, haven't we, before about Sambi at the moment maybe needing a senior sort of member of the squad or senior midfielder next to him to try and help him out. And obviously Xhaka getting the red card, Sambi had to step up. And I know it wasn't maybe not his most eye-catching performance, but I thought he was superb again in the middle, just breaking it up, you know, sitting in front of the back 4 or back 5 as it was, and just making it difficult for Liverpool, you know, to get through the middle. And I mean, we could every one of them put in such a big shift, didn't they? You know, you can't really fault any of them, and that's all you can ask for. Like I said, yeah.
It was interesting that Arteta used the term brotherhood. He said, you know, there's this growing feeling amongst the fans and the players, I think, that something is happening. You know, it is developing. Would you, with all the departures, you know, to AFCON and the injuries and COVID, is there anything else that we could have done with that first team that we put out at Anfield?
Oh, not really. I mean, you are down to bare bones, aren't you? There's not much more that you could have done. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I mean, I don't know. Can you? Is there anybody else that could have really made any? We really are. We really are struggling at the moment. I don't know. I know most teams are, but it seems, especially last night. You know, like you look at the bench and there's not much there, is there? In fact, there's hardly anything there. There's only.
Well, it was like a crash.
Yeah.
There was all colouring books on the side, I swear, and some crayons. They were that young. In the light of this midfield crisis, do you think Arteta's regretting not signing up Jack Wilshere? It's just a question I got asked, so I thought I'd throw it out.
I don't. Well, I think he can still sign him, can't he? I think, you know, I think the option's there. I just think if he was a realistic option, I think Jack would have already been signed. I can't imagine Mikel would ever turn down the chance of having a player of Jack's quality if Jack was at that level, if that makes sense. He's right there. He's training with he's coaching the youngsters, and he's in and around the club now. Mikel can see, and he's never, well, up until, well, at the moment when they're recording this pod, he's never wavered, has he, Mikel? He's always stood by Jack was never going to be part of the playing squad. So the only thing I can imagine is that physically he's just never going to be able to reach that point again, you know, at the level that Mikel demands. You know, Jack he's just, I can imagine technically he's still most probably better than most on that training ground, you know, but just physically it only takes one tackle, doesn't it? And he potentially could be gone. His ankles, you know, he's had so many injuries, and like I said, technically he's probably better than most, but physically, is he able to reach that level that Mikel demands in his midfield? I mean,
it makes me wonder what's going through his head at the moment, because he was a wonderful player, wasn't he, back in the day? But he's at the January window now, and there's no offers. That must be soul destroying, heartbreaking. What a talent he could have been, bar the injuries, which were constant, weren't they?
Yeah, I'd be interested to know if he has had. I mean, I'm sure he must have had offers from other countries. You know, I think it's just maybe if he wants to uproot his family and take them to America or Australia or whatever, because he could still do a job there. I think he obviously, and rightly so, obviously rates himself to be, you know, to do a job at the Premier, you know, elite level. So I'd love him to sign again, but you just have that feeling, don't you, that let's say, you know, I mean, North London Derby would not be a good game for him to come back to, but let's say he did kit up on Sunday, and Højbjerg goes straight through him, you know. No, I mean, have you got the confidence he'd be able to last 90 minutes? I don't think many people would give him that, you know, the chances of him completing 90 minutes. So, yeah, we need players in there, don't we? We need signings. We need bodies, because we are desperately thin in there, especially.
We'll talk about the options in a minute. Who you would like to see in? There's a lot of speculation. Every time you open up a sort of Arsenal blog site, you've got a list of names as long as your arm. Let's get back to the match. The 24th minute is when it all changed. The complexion entirely changed. Walk us through your vision of the Xhaka incident.
Yeah, so we were attacking I think Bukayo Saka had the ball and he was attacking Liverpool's box and the ball broke down, or the attack broke down. And Liverpool looked to counter-attack quickly and knocked it over the top. It was like a diagonal pass left to right, straight towards Jota, and Xhaka was the one covering back. Now, a lot of people are saying that Xhaka was a bit unlucky because he was looking at the flight of the ball and he didn't know where Jota was. Now, I'm not entirely buying that, because if you watch it back, as Xhaka is running before the ball's released, he can see Jota in front of him. And he does look back, and he's obviously looking at the ball, but he does take another glance, and Jota is right in front of him. He can also see where he is in relation to the rest of the defense. So he's also fully aware, I believe, that he knows he's the last man. So when he goes to clear the ball, instead of making contact with the ball, he makes contact with Jota's chest. Jota goes down very easily. I mean, he's almost gone, hasn't he, before he's connected with the ball. If you watch it in real time, his legs have given way almost at the point of contact. You know, he's Jota's, gone down very easily.
I'll tell you what, Al Pacino couldn't put in a better performance with that. I mean, I don't even think the contact was that harsh. He kind of sort of blundered into it, didn't he? But he went down like he'd been shot by a machine gun.
But the way I think Xhaka put his faith in the referee, basically letting him off. I think it was, I don't know why he thought this, but my view is that he thought he would get away with it based on the fact that he would be able to blag not knowing where Jota was, if that makes sense. So, and obviously with it being Xhaka, that's not going to be the case, because we've seen those before. We've seen last man, I think, Arsenal played
But
Leicester.
Was he the last man? Because I had a look at it, and as I've watched it quite a few times, probably like yourself, and Gabriel's high. I don't know whether they're in line but Gabriel's right up there. He would never get to Jota at all.
No.
I mean, God knows he's 30 feet from Jota.
Yeah, well, so with that in mind, you'd probably say he'd have to be the last man. Ramsdale's not in a great position. If you've seen that, he's well off his line. So I think Jota's he's a top striker, and he's clinical. He's technically very good. So if he'd have got a shot away, you would probably have banked on him scoring. I saw somebody say last night that Xhaka's taken one for the team to stop that. Fair enough, but I mean, he could have just pulled him back, couldn't he? He didn't have to. Watch it again as well. He doesn't have to make that kick, does he? I think he can. He might not get there ahead of Jota, but I think he can get there to maybe try and put him off balance or put him off the shot. I don't know. This is all, what ifs. But I thought it was a red card. I thought it's just typical Xhaka. Just a really. I mean, how many times have we said this? But this is somebody who I really don't know what goes through his head. I really don't know what he sees. I don't know where or how he thinks the referees view him. Especially now after so many red cards and so many brain dead moments, that he just, I don't know, in his own head, in his own head, how he thinks the referees view him. And
do you think he suffers from that? Do you think as a result, if that had been Kieran Tierney,
do
you think it would have been a red card still? Or do you think, because Patrick Vieira had this problem, didn't he? Every time he put a foot in, he seemed to get a red card. He got 7 throughout his career, I think it was.
Especially, I mean, Vieira, it was more so in the early days, wasn't it? It was more so when he was his reputation was being built, but Vieira could always back it up. And Vieira also never, he did have these moments where he lost his head. Like I said, that was more in the early part of his Arsenal career, but he backed it up with immense performances where he carried the team and he was the pillar of strength. Whereas Xhaka is not that. Xhaka is not that Vieira figure. I just think, just going back to what I was saying, I just think maybe I just don't understand what, like his decision making, because when you're on the football pitch, you've always, 9 times out of 10, you've got more than one option, and he always seems to make the wrong choice. He always chooses the wrong option, and I'd love to have have listened to Mikel if you could have got a real honest answer out of him yesterday about Xhaka, because when the team put in such a great, not a great performance, such a defensively disciplined and really high energy, and they were all together, and they're all fighting to the bitter end to try and get that result and keep that clean sheet. And then you've got Xhaka who just is the complete opposite. And I'd love to know what was going through his head, especially when he got the red card. But overall, do you think it was a red card?
I had trouble deciding, and my opinion is, at the moment, it's still a bit foggy. I see what you're saying. I get that, but I don't think the foot was up as high as some of the ones I've seen, and they've got a yellow card.
Yeah,
that's my worry. Is he has got an argument that the flight of the ball, you've seen those when they've come over to you in a game of football. It's hard, isn't it? You've got someone there bearing down, you give them a little glance, but then you've lost them because you're actually concentrating on the flight of the ball. So, I don't want to sort of kind of go back on what I've said about Xhaka. He is a hothead. He does have these rushes of blood that cost you games. And fortunately for him, it didn't. But I must have watched it about 40 times, and I can see the 2 points of view. But I'm going to stick with mine. I think it was a yellow. He probably would have gone off anyway because he would have done something else stupid.
I mean, you could just to slightly go off point a little bit. You can understand, somebody like Ainsley Maitland-Niles, his frustration, because how many times has Xhaka done this? How many times, so many incidents that you can call upon where he's let the team down or let himself down, or just not, he was captain, and obviously we know what happened with that. And he just gets straight back in the side, and Mikel just he keeps playing him. And it just sprung to mind last night. I just thought, Ainsley, he wouldn't have done that, would he? And to be fair, from a technical point of view, I think Ainsley's a good, maybe, probably better than Xhaka, but maybe doesn't have the leadership and the experience that Granit does. But just popped into my mind. I just wanted to bring that up because you can understand somebody, a youngish midfielder like Maitland-Niles looking at the Arsenal first team, seeing this guy who, and I've said this to you before, fake hard man, that kind of, like I said, the opposite of Vieira. Vieira was not a fake hard man. He was a effing hard man, and Roy Keane would have freely admit that if it did come to fisticuffs, Vieira would have wiped the floor with him, I mean, you can't say that about Xhaka at all, can you? I mean, you already know this, but we need an upgrade in there. And I know at the moment we need him because we've got no one, but we need an upgrade on him. And I think once we get that upgrade, whoever that will be, it'll be like, God, it's not the missing piece of the puzzle, but it would be like a huge piece of the puzzle that we've added that will make make a lot of difference, Do
you think Mikel, after this, is finally seeing the light? Do you think he's suddenly smelt the coffee type of thing and realizes that he needs an upgrade now, and he's got to let him go? Roma apparently still interested, so there's a way out. I think he's coming round to that realization, don't you?
Yeah, I hope so. I think Mikel obviously values his influence and his experience, and I'm sure around the training ground, in some capacity, he's good with the youngsters, and I think it'll be an area where in the summer we'll go hard and spend, if not in this window. You were talking about Arthur from Juventus, is it? I think he looks quite a good player. Well, he was a few years ago. So, I think we'll be looking to him definitely get I mean, one or two in there, right? We're not even like, we don't need what, we need more than one, you know? So definitely an area we need to improve on.
Let's try something else then on the Xhaka front. Got an itchy back. Hold on a minute. I've got some stuff off social media, and I've got some emails that came through to us to give us a different perspective. It's always nice, as you said a couple of weeks back, it's nice to get a varied opinion. Yeah. It kind of makes the podcast, doesn't it? So we got an email. JT says it's easy to bash Xhaka, but where was the defence? As far as I'm concerned, Gabriel was the only one capable of getting back, but where were White and Tierney? Well, Tierney was right up the other end, wasn't he?
Yeah,
he was part of the attack.
Because like we said earlier, you know, it was very clear that when we were attacking, it was definitely going to be that kind of game where it was more of a counter-attacking performance. You know, when we had the ball, the wide men would get forward to support, and those in the middle, Xhaka, would drop into the defence. So, you know, you overload the wings, and then those in the middle, especially Sambi and Granit Xhaka, will look to sit a little bit deeper in case we get hit on the break. That's why they were forward. And Kieran Tierney, you know, I mean, we've seen it how many times. You know, he's really excellent getting forward. His delivery is superb. That's where you want him. It's going to be at the expense of, there might be that odd hole, but that's where Xhaka should be. Xhaka was in the right place. You know, the fact was that he was just maybe 3 or 4 yards further forward where he should have been. I mean, that's, and I'm not having a go at him about that. That's just where the way the attack went. You know,
let's remind ourselves as well, because that was a peach of a ball, wasn't it? I mean, you know, that was a defence splitting ball. Yeah, and I don't care if Tony Adams was there. It would have really put him to the test to try and bring 100%. That down.
100%. And Xhaka, I'm not blaming him at all for this. He was busting the gut to get back. And like I said, he was probably 5 yards farther back from where he ideally would have wanted to be, but that's just the way it is. The issue that we spoke about earlier was that it was the execution of what he was trying to do. I think in hindsight, I think if you offered him that position or that situation again, he wouldn't go to try and hook the ball away. He would, I think, would maybe let Jota get the ball, because Jota is still going to have to steady himself before he shoots. So he's going to have to, there'll be a slight delay, whereas I think Xhaka can then maybe get round and, like I say, maybe try and put off Jota when he tries to execute the shot. Or, I mean, it's easy, isn't it, in hindsight? It's easy. You know, you look at... the game's going a million miles an hour. But for me, Tierney was ultimately, when you go to somewhere like Anfield, that's where you want Tierney to try and help out the attack. I've got no problem with that. It's just, and like you said, it was a great ball. You know, Liverpool are a great side. You know, that's going to happen, isn't it? You know, delivery is going to be superb. So.
Well, if you're that far committed forward, you're going to be open to this kind of sucker punch. We've got one from Carl. Carl, I had to look up what you were on about, because I was a bit kind of miffed. The adrenaline was flowing. I couldn't remember what you were actually referencing in this bit. But Carl says, I'm not taking the criticism by Sky's idiot pundits that Ramsdale should have come out, and that he was responsible for Xhaka having no option but to take the man out. Yeah. And if I played it back, and it's Jamie Carragher basically saying, because Ramsdale comes thundering out, and then he realises that he's got a chance of being lobbed. Yeah. So he did, for me, he did the right thing.
Yeah, like we said earlier, he wasn't in a great position. Maybe he could have. I mean, he could have maybe spoke to Xhaka, but it's hard because it's going so fast. It's a counter attack, you know. Ramsdale he's very quick off his line, you know. He like all goalkeepers are now. It didn't look great, but I certainly wouldn't blame Ramsdale. It was just it was a great ball, you know.
Good choice for me. He came out, he saw that he wasn't going to make it in time, and he went back to defend his goal. Spence says, surely Jota was unsighted as the ball dropped. Xhaka flicked up a foot, which landed close to the abdomen. He wasn't the last man. and the kick wasn't head high. The ref couldn't wait to give him a card. Typical.
Yeah, I mean, if
They're quite varied, aren't they? But there's like a little thread of connection.
I think let's take away the whole unsighted thing. If it was Nketiah going through on goal like that, and Van Dijk took a swipe at Nketiah and Nketiah went down, I think we'd all be shouting for a red card. That's the way I would even take away the whole Granit Xhaka perception. If it was Van Dijk on Nketiah last night, we'd all be like, that is a red card. He's the last man, and he stopped a goal scoring opportunity. So for me, it was a red card. It was. And then to answer what you said earlier, if it was Kieran Tierney, I think it would be a red card. I do.
What about Robbie Z then? Robbie Z says, how many times does Xhaka have to cost us the game? When is Arteta going to finally wake up and get rid of him?
Yeah. I mean,
we're all there, aren't we?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I definitely agree with that. Ultimately, it's not until we've got adequate cover, and we are painfully thin in there, like we said earlier. So we might have to endure Granit Xhaka at least till the end of the season.
I've got one here. You probably can't see it. Well, there's a nice old picture there, isn't it? The leg swinging up there. You can't see that audience on the audio version of this, but we're showing it anyway. It's from Gooner's Talk, and it says some Arsenal fans said that Xhaka's action was done stupidly, but I think it was bravery. Some of his teammates failed to do their job, and Xhaka became the victim. That's a novel one.
Yeah. I mean, what are they? So when they said that the rest of the team didn't step up,
probably go back to the defence with White and Tierney, I suppose they're referencing. But I wouldn't have gone that far, to be fair.
No, I mean, I thought White on the night was fantastic, wasn't he? He was Rolls Royce, and he's
your man of the match.
Yeah, I would say so. I really liked Lacazette's performance. I thought he led. He was the senior man. He stepped up and he led by example. And for somebody who for quite a while now hasn't been able to sort of complete more than about 70 minutes in a game, he absolutely gave everything right until the last, gave everything he could. So yeah, I'd give it to Ben White because of the clean sheet. But I thought Saka was really good as well. I thought we haven't even spoke about the chance for Saka, when Tierney went down the left-hand side and crossed it in and it was a slightly heavy touch, but still a good touch. I didn't agree with the post-match analysis when they were saying that Xhaka's touch was too heavy. I think it was Merson, or I think he said that it was too, but I thought his touch was okay, and it just required a little bit of a better connection to clip it over. I could see what he was doing. He was trying to go back across Alisson into the Alisson's left to Saka's right. And I mean, Alisson's a great keeper, quick off his line, but you could argue that was the best chance of the game, and we were deep into the second half there.
I tell you what, if that had gone in, I would have just laughed and wet myself at the same time.
Yeah,
it would have been so funny with all the hubbub. Got another one for you, an interesting take. If you can sit there and claim that we didn't win that because of a red card, you could argue inadvertently that Xhaka saved us from losing a goal and going down, which prevented the loss.
Yeah, I've seen this argument. Yeah, took one for the team. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, that's basically it, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think Xhaka. I don't think any player would do that. Not that early. If that's the last minute. If Jota's going through on goal and it's the 90, what would he play? 5 minutes at injury time last night. So if it's the 94th minute and Xhaka's and Jota's going through, I mean, if I was playing, I'd probably you'd pull him back, wouldn't you? You'd stop them. But what was it? 24 minutes in, or whatever it was. It's too early for that.
You'd have a little sort of lean in or a nibble, wouldn't you? You wouldn't get that
shove. Yeah.
Bruce Lee, wasn't it? Right. So obviously we're going to be without Xhaka now for, I think it's 2 matches. There was some sort of debate whether it's 1 or 2. It is actually now 2. Transfer situation. It's Friday, the day after the Anfield game. There's nothing been announced.
No.
It's not looking good at the minute, is it? We don't know whether the Tottenham game's going ahead, the North London derby. But who would you like to see come in out of all the names that are mentioned? The people I don't want to see is Ollie Watkins or Calvert-Lewin. I just don't want. I don't think that's a good fit for me.
Yeah. I mean, there's it looks like Arthur from Juve. Looks like he's gonna come in, and I mean, a couple of years ago, I think Barca paid in the region of 75 million for him, and I think Lionel Messi turned around and said that he was very similar to Xavi. So, I mean, he may have gone off the board a little bit.
What, height and hair colour?
Yeah. So, but I mean, you know, he fits the bill. Like he looks pretty good. I don't really know too much about him, so he'd be a good signing. I mean, obviously there's the Vlahovic that hasn't gone away, but I've never really believed that that's ever going to happen. You haven't seen too much of the player saying he wants to come, have you? It's just more seems like it's the agent trying to generate a move to one of the maybe bigger Italian clubs or somewhere else. I quite like the Swedish striker Isaac. He looks pretty good, and he also looks like the type of like, it looks like an Arsenal signing, right? You know, he looks, you know, he's young, and it's something for Arteta to work with. Don't get me wrong, Vlahovic looks the real deal, and he's got an amazing, you know, he's had a really superb season. And I'd love it.
My thing though, Jay, is if he's not actually, you know, leaping to get a pen, if he's not fighting someone to grab their pen out their pocket and sign for the Arsenal, don't bother.
No,
you know, the agents work for him. He can actually fly the agents off if he doesn't like what they're saying, or pay them off, or whatever he's got to do. But if he really, truly, absolutely, 100%, categorically wanted to come to Arsenal, he'd be in an Arsenal shirt and they'd be taking pictures of him.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And that's what you want. I mean, if it wasn't quite like that, you know, even if we had him Vlahovic for a couple of seasons and he got us, because he is the type of striker I believe he's good enough to get us back into the Champions League and get us a lot closer to the top three. And even if it meant signing him and then selling him in 2 years to, I don't know, Real Madrid or something, you know, but it doesn't look like it's. I don't think. I've never really truly sort of believed that transfer is going to happen. So. I think I heard today on the radio that we might be looking to recall Aziz from Portsmouth.
Yeah, he's back apparently. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's obviously more for a cover point of view. But I mean, you remember a few years back when Coquelin was out on loan and Wenger bought him back, and he was superb, wasn't he? And I'm not saying Aziz can have that impact, but you never know. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean...
What about other names then? Van der Beek, Wijnaldum?
Yeah, I mean, Van Aldum's, yeah, he's a good player.
There's even a rumour that we're in for Zakaria.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah, it looks like loans, doesn't it? It looks like at the minute, there's so many it's the some sort of more realistic type of transfer. I'd take Wijnaldum, definitely. Premier League proven, and he's already got that respect. He's done it. You know, he's won the league at Liverpool, won the Champions League, so he fits the bill. I'd prefer him over Xhaka any day. So yeah, I'd be happy with that one.
Interesting slant. Before we wrap up, do you remember when Sky used to have sort of reporters and correspondents that had normal names? Well, now they've got a guy called Flex. And his thing is Flex at United, so that's nice. So Flex said, plug him in. Flex said that Arsenal's only way of attracting talent is to pursue their current emerging youth policy at Hale End and talent from overseas. They're not in the Champions League and they can't afford top players like Mbappe. Is that a fair comment? I think it is, don't you?
Yeah. Of course it is. Of course it is. I mean, there's nothing new there that Flex is talking about. You know, that's just the way it is.
I think we've got to come up with some really trendy names, me and you, Jay. We've got to come up with some sort of little handle and put it at the bottom of the screen.
Boldy.
But it is one of those. I mean, Flex can talk, but you know, I just want to give some perspective here because Arsenal keep getting a bad press, but when you look at the clubs around us, look at the Spurs, look at the Spurs, the Spuds. Look at Spuds, look at Man United, the mess they're in. Man United, who would have thought that they would be in such poor shape? They virtually got to get rid of Rangnick and bring someone else in to replace him. And then they've got to virtually strip out that team.
Yeah, I mean, you take Ronaldo out, and I mean they're very average. And ultimately, when you got somebody like Flexi Boy, and those and the equivalent of other clubs talking about Arsenal, that it shows that we're doing something well, and we're seen as a threat now, because a few years back we weren't, and nobody was talking about us. So they can all see that there's a lot of positivity and a lot of good things happening in our squad. And like we've said a million times, we will have bumps in the road like Forest, but more so we're getting performances like Anfield and like against City, and like we've seen so often this season where we've managed to get positive results. So I take it as a positive when you see fan accounts or whoever from other clubs talking about us, because you know, it wasn't that long ago when nobody was talking about us. So
yeah, well, I think I've got my name. It's because I'm doing that thing again, aren't I? It's always at the end of the pod to start rubbing my chest. I think I've got my name because I'm 6'7". I'm going to be Stretch T. I'm going to have that. And your one's what? What were you going to be? Baldy W. On that note, folks, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks very much, Joe, for coming into the gun room again. It's been brilliant. And we'll see you next time around. By the way, incidentally, if the North London derby goes ahead, we're at the toilet bowl, aren't we? So what would you predict? Did you see that thing, by the way, before you do that? Teddy Sheringham saying he wasn't really that interested because they were both very average teams.
Wow. I mean, what even is a Teddy Sheringham these days? Like, well, he's not on telly at all, is he? He's not. I think when you got all those numpties on the radio, people like Jamie O'Hara and Gabby Bonlahor and Jermaine Jenis, all these morons, they managed to get work on TV and on radio, and you got someone like Teddy Sheringham who, I mean, what even is it? Like I said, what's a Teddy Sheringham these days? It's just a.
I think he was a tree in The Masked Singer.
Yeah, well,
I had to watch it. My kids.
That's how he gets on TV. He's on The Masked Singer. So yeah, another muppet.
All right, Jay, you take care, mate, and say hello to Stacey for me. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.